Welcome to my channel Fiction Star, so I will start with new series. The series name is, What If Naruto and Fubuki Were Couple? So do not wasting any more time. Let's start the video. Naruto looked on with wide bewildered eyes as he observed an entire city vanish in an instant from the face of the earth. Flame and mortar reigning supreme in this hellish landscape as the skies above parted from the force of the attack, the land itself giving way to such might. Turning his frightful eyes towards the source of the attack, they settled themselves upon the back of this most monstrous of perpetrators. The monster being none other than a petite woman that was wearing a form-fitting black dress with long sleeves and 4 high-cut leg slits. The outfit being finished by simple yet elegant-looking low-heeled black shoes. From his current angle he was unable to see her face, as all he could gaze upon was her back and the emerald green hair she sported, which curled up at the ends. The petite female currently being outlined by a slowly diminishing emerald green glow. Her outstretched hand turned towards the now ruined city. The female, releasing a long shuddering breath she had not known she had been holding, lowered her arm back to her side as the green outline that had enveloped her form finally faded, her shoulders visibly slumping as the weight of her actions today seemed to fall atop them. Casting her head down towards the ground for a moment, she contemplated her actions, her thoughts wandering on the number of people whose lives she had just ended without a single thought, without a single word. She truly was a monster. Breaking her out of her self-destructive thoughts, a cry rang out. Pitiful and heart-wrenching, it brought her back to the true victim of this most grand of tragedies. Turning her head to regard the little boy that she had just killed 7 million people for, she gazed upon his dirty tear-streaked face as he mourned the loss of the only place he had ever known, of the only people he had ever seen, his cries ringing out across the newly formed valley and echoing in this vast empty expanse. Like the most mournful of melodies, she couldn't help finding herself drawn to it, captivated by this child whose tragic past she had just ended, she having brought this dark chapter of the boy's life to a close single-handedly. As Naruto watched the monster turn towards him, his cries turned to nothing more than mere whimpers of discontent as they died in his throat. As he saw those haunting emerald eyes turn to regard him, cowering as the woman approached him, he was overcome by an overwhelming sense of fear that was almost instinctual in nature. This woman that had extinguished so many lives in an instant had now set her gaze upon him. Would his flame too be quenched by her indomitable will? His meager and short existence brought to an end just as so many others had perished on this day? No. Tatsumaki stopped short for a second as she observed the change in demeanor in the previously cowering boy, his cries falling silent as his sapphire blue eyes turned to regard her with not fear, but the ferocity of a cornered animal, of someone pushed to the edge of desperation after a series of events beyond their control had led them to such a position that they could no longer differentiate the good from the bad, the hero from the villain, the numerous events that had transpired over the course of this day having been too much for the young boy to handle. A spark seemed to light itself deep within the boy's eyes as a will not his own took a hold of his body, as instinct won over fear, as his desire to survive outweighed all human limitations with which he may have been inhibited by. Ah! He cried out as thousands of thick roots burst from his back and embedded themselves into the earth, they branching out rapidly, trees bursting from the ground and climbing to unimaginable heights as greenery and life blossomed all around him. Slowly his shimmering blonde hair seemed to lose its vibrancy as it faded to an ethereal white, his eyes themselves burning with a ferocity that was almost maddening in its intensity. Tatsumaki looked surprised at the sudden display before her eyes narrowed as she observed the roots which had previously been spreading rapidly in all directions converge on her position. Looking back at the boy, however, her eyes softened once more as she saw the tears streaming down his cheeks as he regarded her with those same fearful blue orbs of his. He was so much like her that it frightened her. She needed to get him under control before he truly lost all form of reasoning to his instincts. His abilities were much too unstable to risk him losing control of his emotions to such a degree. She could only hope that he managed to gain a better control over his abilities with time. As the thousands of roots tunneled their way towards her position, her eyes became alight with power, chunks of earth being ripped from the earth as they hovered around her, her hair seeming to upturn slightly as some invisible force encompassed her form, it causing the tail ends of her dress to billow behind her. He would live. Suddenly hundreds of roots burst from the ground as they merged into a singular massive construct, it taking the appearance of a massive wooden dragon that was covered in greenery, seemingly overflowing with life. Where it trailed over life blossomed, yet where it headed only certain destruction could follow. writhing towards her like some skybound serpent as vines enveloped its form. Its cavernous maw parted open in a silent roar as it threatened to devour her and much of the surrounding landscape whole. As it descended upon her with all the might of a falling star, she simply raised a single arm towards it as that same emerald-green outline from before encompassed her just before the serpentine manifestation of life crashed into her, the nature construct tearing itself apart as it impacted her barrier, revealing a red core where its head had previously been, her hair billowing back as the massive juggernaut of nature collided against her with the full force of nature itself at its heels. In an instant the impact caused the land behind her to be completely overturned for miles as the landscape was destroyed from the massive force she had just halted in its tracks, it having caused her to actually take a step back in surprise as she had underestimated how powerful the attack truly was. She had simply taken into account its base traits rather than the being that had created it, or the strange energy residing within it. What she had thought would perhaps be an attack that was in the demon range actually bordering dangerously close to dragon. Perhaps she should have taken its base appearance as a clue. The dragon continued to deconstruct itself as she pushed it back along with the red core that resided within it. No, the boy whispered fearfully as he saw his attack be halted so effortlessly. No. Naruto roared as numerous vines encompassed the red orb as it pulsed with life and reconstructed the dragon, the action surprising Tatsumaki as she deftly avoided the incoming attack, the dragon barreling past her at high velocity as it cut through the air at twice the speed from before. Tatsumaki then observed as from the land behind the boy, which had seemingly been terraformed into a lush forest, burst forth dozens of more dragons identical to the first one, those each branching off into numerous smaller ones as thousands of them rained down upon her from above, the original dragon curving upwards as it too broke off into dozens of identical smaller dragons. Casting a quick glance at the boy, she saw that his arms were both now rooted to the ground and his hair was fully snow-white as his head hung weakly whilst his eyes regarded her with abject fear. She needed to stop this. If this continued any longer, the boy was going to kill himself. It was then that she started to take the situation seriously. Casting her hands to the sky, she gestured towards the thousands of incoming projectiles as they were all enveloped in a greenish glow, and were halted midair. Clenching her hands into fists, she observed as each of the dragon heads exploded violently, showering the surrounding area in foliage just as each of the dragon's long elongated bodies withered and died. Her enhanced senses picking up something tunneling underground, Tatsumaki quickly used her powers to blast upwards into the air just as thousands of tentacle-like roots burst from the ground trailing after her, she twisting out of the way of their grasp as she employed her telekinetic abilities to enable her to take flight and keep out of reach of the living forest that now surrounded Naruto. Sensing Naruto's life force waning and feeling her heart cry out for the child, she did something that in retrospect she would consider foolish, if not downright insane. She cutting off her ability to take flight and casting herself into the living forest that had taken root down below. Her sister, who had been looking on from afar from a protective shielding she had formed, crying out in fear at Tatsumaki's seemingly suicidal move. The young girl, observing her big sister plummet into the depths of the monstrous forest that seemed to continuously be spreading upwards and outwards as it threatened to consume all beneath its massive canopy. Instantly hundreds of thorn vines threatened to pull her into their deathly embrace, the forest itself attempting to hinder her progress as it impeded her path. Tatsumaki in turn using her powers to maneuver around each and every one of them as she shredded the ones that got too close, whilst clearing a path toward the quickly fading boy. Finding the action growing incredibly tedious to do as she approached the origin of this forest, she used her powers to raise two great slabs of earth on either side of her, cutting off the majority of the forest from her path as she broke it off into sections. What she didn't expect was for the forest to use this to its advantage, as the path was instantly flooded by a wave of thorn vines that rapidly cascaded towards her. Growing tired of these obstacles and knowing that she only had to reach the boy to end this, she used her powers to take her to her destination rather than work her way there. Shooting forwards at high velocity, she blasted straight through the garden of thorns all the way towards her little prince, the thorns being shredded by the action as she reached the boy in a mere instant, her clothes in tatters and numerous small cuts littering her skin, a few thorn vines still clinging lifelessly to her form. Looking down upon the young boy, she found numerous flowers around him, while strange vine-like veins visibly crawled under his skin. Looking into his fearful, currently golden eyes as he channeled the strange energy within him, she finally understood. To this boy who was fully ignorant of the world, she was death. A being capable of ending life, but with a wave of her hand she was a monster. But in his mind so was he. As Tatsumaki bent down, the boy instantly clenched his eyes shut fearfully, whilst the forestry around them was kept at bay by her overwhelming might, any foliage that came too close being shredded instantly. The boy was prepared for many things, death being foremost amongst them. However, he was fully unprepared for what came next. "It's okay." Instantly the forest fell silent, the rustling and digging giving way to silence, as the massive dome of foliage that now surrounded them went still in their efforts to break through her barrier. Tenderly she had pulled the boy into an embrace, she resting his head gently against her shoulder whilst a soft smile found its way to her face. The boy wide-eyed at the unfamiliar action and unable to resist as his arms were still fully rooted to the ground, it ultimately bringing him back to his senses as his hair bled back to its brilliant gold, and his eyes shifted back to their ocean blue. "No one's going to hurt you ever again." Uprooting his arms from the now rich soil beneath them, he revealed the limbs to be covered in thick roots and bark. Not knowing how to respond to the action he made to wrap his arms around her, just as a wicked grin appeared on his face, and his eyes dilated back into golden pupils, his hands shifting into massive wicked-looking claws behind her back. However, as he made to dismember the woman and truly lose himself to that animalistic part of him, her voice called out to him once more, pulling him from the depths of his own madness with a gentle utterance which seemed to cause a lifetime's worth of loneliness to come crashing down upon him. A mother, a father, a brother, a friend, the family and companionship he lacked, guidance, friendship, dreams, understanding, love, all the things he had craved for since as far back as he could remember. "I'm here for you." Slowly his claws retracted as the skin around his arms lost its greenish hue, the vines around said limbs going back under his skin before fading completely as he wrapped his arms around the older teen, tears brimming at the corners of his eyes blurring his vision. "Let it out," she whispered softly, a small smile on her face. She used to playing the motherly role for her little sister. "Wah!" Naruto cried as he clung to the older teen's black dress and let out a lifetime's worth of tears as Tatsumaki looked on softly at the small boy in her arms. Yes, so much like her when she was his age, with just a dash of Fubuki's clinginess for good measure. He was like the little brother she never had, another lost soul persecuted due to the prejudiced and superstitious nature of man. Monsters had feelings too. They had families, dreams, some even wore human skin like her and her sister, as no matter what they looked like or did, those that were different would always be regaled as freakish, as monstrous. Monsters like them needed to stick together. Feeling the forest around them begin to grow restless, she knew that they needed to leave soon. Looking back at the young boy, she saw him lift his head to regard her with shimmering blue eyes, large droplet-like tears streaming down his cheeks as he looked at her with the wonder and awe only a child could possess. Greedily taking in her face, he devoured every detail hungrily as he committed every bit of her face to memory, observing a small droplet of blood trail down from a cut on her brow all the way to her cheek. He felt a pang of guilt course through him. That was his doing. He had hurt her. This was all his fault. If he had never met her, if he had never led her back to the city on that day, none of this would have happened. He wanted to say he was sorry, but he simply had not the words to communicate such a sentiment, he never having learned how to properly speak. Reaching up with a trembling hand, he delicately cupped her cheek directly over where the droplet of blood laid, the action causing the older teen to tilt her head cutely to the side in confusion. However, all questions in her mind were banished as a euphoric sensation coursed through her, crawling over her skin and licking at her with tongues of fire. It was so overwhelming it caused her mind to blank and for her to close her eyes as it enveloped her, consumed her. It was indescribable. Suddenly her wounds, numerous yet small as they may have been, healed over as she was invigorated once more. Opening her eyes, she observed that whatever the boy was doing had caused him to take on a green outline not much unlike her own as hundreds of flowers blossomed around them. At this point the forest had reached a tumult as it wildly shifted around them, threatening to consume them both in the middle of this sea of life, yet they were the epicenter of this storm that raged as much within their hearts as it did their surroundings. The boy, retracting his now blood-stained hand, looked at it sadly for a second as he regarded it with an expression that was out of place on one so young. Why was it that today he felt that he lost more than his home? Than his people? Suddenly his eyes widened as he felt a pair of lips gently press themselves upon his forehead, causing him to go stiff at the alien sensation. Tatsumaki pulling back was rewarded by the wide eyes of the boy as he looked at her smiling face confusedly. "Thank you," she said gratefully, just as she herself went wide-eyed as the boy jumped straight into her arms and pulled her right back into a hug, the action causing her to stagger slightly backwards in surprise. Smiling at him as she patted his head, she looked around to see the entire forest seemingly attempting to break through her barrier, even the portion of it that was underground being assaulted by hundreds of roots as they attempted to break into their little garden. Naruto, tearing himself away from her, observed the dilemma they now found themselves in. Because of his fear, the forest wanted him back. With him it could continue to grow, to spread. Digging his nails into his palm, he willed himself to bleed, his blood mingling beautifully with that of the girl beside him, and allowed a single drop to fall upon the fertile soil upon which they stood. Tatsumaki regarding the action curiously, sure she could escape, but it would be difficult to do so with the boy in tow. Feeling the ground rumble beneath her, she braced herself as she held the boy more tightly in her arms. Suddenly blasting upwards, they found themselves rapidly ascending through the forest as she kept the barrier firmly around them, causing them to tear through the surrounding foliage and blast straight through the forest's massive canopy, the two of them being atop what looked like a giant stem with a rapidly blooming red flower at the crown. The forest seemed to grow more agitated at the action before it all suddenly exploded upwards as it coiled along the giant stem, intent on not letting its prize get away. It shrunk its borders as the trees and plant life grew at an unprecedented rate as it made chase after them. The flower, reaching its peak, finally bloomed fully and prompted Tatsumaki to blast off it farther into the sky with the boy in hand as a greenish outline enveloped her once more. Holding on to Naruto with one arm, she looked down at the monstrous mass of life that was climbing upwards towards them as she regarded it coldly. Quickly leveling her free hand towards it, she channeled a massive amount of power into her attack before she released it, the attack actually causing waves of green energy to burst free from her hand from how much she was channeling at the moment. Instantly the entire forest seemed to buckle under some unseen pressure, as the earth cracked. "Disappear," she uttered coldly just as the entire forest fell apart, and the ground exploded beneath it, the forest being fully consumed in the wake of her attack as it was crushed into nothingness and greedily devoured by giant avalanches of earth. Meanwhile Naruto could only look at the woman in awe as he saw this happen before his very eyes. She could have ended this entire fight any moment she wanted to, yet she had willingly placed herself in harm's way and gotten injured just for him. Instantly his already massive respect for the woman grew even higher. It was then that he decided, at that very moment, as he gazed at her smiling face as she turned to regard him, his definition of a hero. Several years later, Naruto, feeling someone interrupt his sleep, blearily opened his eyes. He was having that dream again, the one with the green-haired girl that had saved him all those years ago, the one that had inspired him to become a hero. "Oturo, Naruto, Naruchan, Naruto-kun," someone said as they repeatedly poked his cheek, this likely being the person that had woken him. Yet as annoying as the action was, he really couldn't find it in himself to care. The bed just felt so damn good. Wake up, Baldy!" Instantly Naruto's eyes shot open as a tick mark formed itself on his head as he turned to regard the person that had ruined his sleep so nonchalantly. "Shut up! You're the Baldy!" Naruto shouted back as he came face to face with someone that proved that his statement was in fact true. The man before him was very much bald and had a nonchalant, bored expression on his face. Yet Naruto could clearly make out a hint of mischief in his usually dull eyes. The man had sharp features set firmly on a bored complexion and sported a thin, but well-built physique of average height and weight. This was none other than Naruto's big brother and half-assed role model Saitama. Said man then proceeding to poke Naruto's face once more without breaking eye contact as he sunk his finger into Naruto's cheek. "Would you quit it?" Naruto shouted as he slapped the man's hand away, he noticing the tiniest of smirks play across the man's face. "So what do you want? I was having a really good dream, you know," Naruto said tiredly as he rested his head back down on his pillow, not really angry at the older male as he was used to his antics. The man simply pulled out a flyer and held it out at eye level for Naruto to see. "Saturday only. Big sale." "So? Today's Monday," Naruto said confusedly as he looked at a calendar that was currently pinned to the wall with a thumbtack. Saturday having a red circle around it with a note to go to the sale. Sales were usually bi-weekly and tended to be what got them through the month more often than not. The bald man simply pulled the flyer back for a second as he looked at it before he pointed to a small line of text off to the corner. Squinting, Naruto barely managed to see the small text, except seafood and assorted crustaceans which are to go on sale on Monday during the lunch hour special. Why those little cheats try to pass a fast one on us, will they? Naruto said with a dangerous smile. Turning to regard his brother, he voiced his thoughts on the matter. Crab legs? Crab legs, Saitama replied with a nod as they came to a decision on what they were going to do for the day. Getting out of bed as his brother stood up, Naruto quickly rolled up his futon and made to get breakfast ready while his brother sat himself in front of the TV to see if there was anything interesting on the morning news. What time is it? Naruto asked as he got breakfast started for the two of them. It consisting of a bowl of white rice for each of them that he heated up from yesterday's dinner, along with some natto on the side, for texture, 2 fried eggs with accompanying seasonings for each of them which were currently still sizzling on the frying pan at the moment. Finally he had some of his signature tea currently boiling off to the side, a toast for each of them, along with a banana to finish it off for a fairly well-balanced meal. 8:20 came the reply from the living room as Saitama scratched his belly uncaringly. What the crap? What happened to the alarm clock? Naruto shouted as he peeked his head out of the kitchen, Saitama merely pointing towards a hole in the wall where he had punched said alarm clock through. It surprised me, Saitama replied simplistically. What type of half-assed response is that? Naruto demanded. I was having a really good dream, he added, as if that explained everything. Oh well, if you were having a good dream then, do you think I care, you baka? Naruto shouted as he threw a potato at Saitama's head, causing said vegetable to explode on contact with the man's dome. Reaching up a finger, Saitama scooped some up and licked it. These potatoes are mashed, yet oddly undercooked. You're letting your cooking slip, Naruto, Saitama said as he looked at the blonde teen apathetically, causing Naruto to grow a tick mark on his head at that. I want that hole in the wall fixed, Naruto said seriously as he headed back into the kitchen, his tone booking no argument on the matter. Why don't you just use your powers to fix it? Saitama whined as he threw himself on his futon. Because then you wouldn't learn your lesson now, would you? I swear this building is more my handiwork than any contractor. Naruto mumbled under his breath as he got back to cooking breakfast. Hearing someone shouting from the TV, as explosions rang out in the background, Naruto knew that today was going to be a long day. Naruto looked over himself in the mirror. He had fixed his hair, brushed his teeth, taken a quick morning shower, and eaten breakfast. There was now only one thing standing between him and a trip to the supermarket with Saitama. Where the hell is my cape? Naruto asked as he looked towards where he normally had it along with his costume. In the wash, Saitama replied as he bit down on his slice of toast whilst reading through a manga while he waited. One reason that he was grateful of not having hair was that it cut down his morning prep time by a few minutes. He himself was wearing a costume consisting of a plain yellow jumpsuit with a short zipper at the collar and a belt, the costume being finished out by a red ensemble of boots, gloves, and a white cape. What, but I thought we did the laundry yesterday? Naruto asked in confusion. No, we did the clothes yesterday. We still have the blankets left to do. Your cape should be in that pile, Saitama said uncaringly just as Naruto found it. It's stained with blood, Naruto complained. Do you think we have enough time to wash it? Naruto asked as he looked back at Saitama over his shoulder. Sure. But the bad guy might leave by then. I'll just go on ahead, Saitama said as he made to leave. No, wait. I'll just hand wash it. It'll take like a second. Naruto begged. Fine, but hurry up, Saitama said as he sat back down and continued to read, not really letting the fact that the longer he waited the more people would die faze him. Make sure not to do it so fast that you tear it in half like last time. A flurry of his hands, a bit of soap, some water, and a burst of flame. Later Naruto was ready. Hey, Naruto grinned cockily as he stepped out of their joint bathroom. Look good, don't I? Naruto was wearing a light orange jumpsuit nearly identical to his brother's, it too having a short zipper at the collar and a belt. The costume was finished out by a blue ensemble of boots, gloves, and a red cape that he and his brother tended to trade off depending on their mood. It was a fashion sin, just like his brother's costume. It didn't go too well with his powers and skill set, but hell, if he cared, it had been a gift, and they needed the money for more important things, maybe when they actually had some cash. Yeah, almost as good as me, Saitama answered with a small smirk, he not giving up the chance to tease his little brother when it presented itself. Whatever, let's get going, City A, right? Yep, then crab leg, Saitama replied as he adjusted his gloves. Of course, Naruto agreed as he slung his cape over his shoulder. City A. He looks weird, is that him? Naruto asked. Don't know, he looks evil enough though, Saitama replied as the two of them looked at the scene from atop of one of the large mountains of rubble in the area, they both being prone as they gazed at their prime suspect through a pair of binoculars. Said suspect was a tall hairless being about the size of a large man, he having two rounded antennae on his head. The alien-like creature had a very muscular body with its skin being an amethyst color that bordered on royal blue. However, the most disturbing aspect of the villain to them was, he's naked. Even if he's not the baddie we're looking for, we would be doing society a favor by taking out an exhibitionist of his caliber, Naruto commented wryly as he put his binoculars away. No, I'm pretty sure that he's the villain, our second naked one this week too, maybe it's in style. Saitama commented thoughtfully. Sure, because it's all the rage among psychopathic villains to go bare out in public. Because that's just so intimidating, Naruto said sarcastically as he played with a large chunk of concrete by chucking it into the air while waiting for his brother to decide on what they were going to do. Sure, the guy was a baddie, but all they had on him so far was that he was an exhibitionist, as most of City A was already leveled. There's a little girl out there, Saitama remarked. Well, I guess some more inadequate men could feel intimidated by the difference in size. That is if these baddies actually had genitalia. Wait, what did you say? Naruto asked as his head shot to the side, he completely forgetting about the chunk of concrete he was juggling as it crashed into Saitama's head and broke apart. Saitama himself not giving any inclination that he noticed or cared about the accident. I said there's a little girl crying over there. Big Blue is heading towards her right now. Where is she? Naruto demanded. Over there, Saitama answered as he pointed off into the distance while still looking through the binoculars. She's wearing a jacket that spells out schoolgirl and has her hair done up pigtails. That's pretty damn cute. We need more cute little children to save and attractive females to rescue, Naruto commented idly as he stood up and dusted his cape. I know those superhero comics and shounen manga play those up so much. That and epic fight scenes, Saitama replied as he too got up. Damn mangas instilling false hope, Naruto agreed, just as a thought came to him. A large, evil, and very naked perverted monster was currently about to grab a cute little girl. Oh hell no! Naruto exclaimed as he blasted towards the scene, the ground cratering behind him as he easily broke the sound barrier without even really trying to. Saitama's cape billowing behind him for a second before he slowly turned towards where his brother had disappeared before following suit as the ground exploded behind him. Just as the monster was about to grab the crying little girl and crush her in its massive grip, did a streak of gold flash by just as he closed his fist, only to find nothing. Looking off to the side, the monster spotted a blonde-haired teen wearing a strange ensemble with an accompanying red cape billowing behind him. The girl from before looking at said teen curiously as she managed to get a hold of herself enough to register the situation she found herself in, as well as the monster that almost ended her, the revelation causing her to immediately cling closer to him out of fear. The teen, being none other than Naruto, immediately sensing her discontent, flooded her senses with a calming sensation that soon enough had her knocked out, the last thing she would remember before she woke up, being his sapphire blue eyes. Who are you? The monster demanded as it narrowed its eyes as it regarded him. Turning to regard the monster after carefully placing the girl out of harm's way, Naruto gave him a withering look. A guy that's missing a trip to the grocery store to talk to you. Can we speed this along? Such impudence, you know not who you are regarding with such disrespect. I was born from the constant stream of pollution with which you humans have suffused the earth. I am Vaccine Man. The newly titled Vaccine Man shouted passionately as he gestured to himself. This being the monster that had destroyed most of City A and taken out 2 A-class heroes with little effort. The Earth is a living organism. You humans are nothing more than a disease-causing bacteria eating away at her life force, in order to obliterate all humans and their pitiful civilization. The Earth has created me. The monster shouted as he shifted into an even more monstrous form resembling a cross between a large dinosaur and a demon, it wielding vicious claws and fangs. Naruto not looking fazed in the least as the monstrous being towered over him. You dare mock my mission, disregard my will to purge this earth. The being ranted as it went into a full-on diatribe. How dare you confront me, Mother Nature's apostle, in such a disrespectful manner? Yet what more could I expect from a mere cutting the monster off as he buried his fist elbow deep into its gut. Naruto instantly sent it blasting backwards at high velocity mid-tirade, straight towards the waiting Saitama, who had been standing idly by as he awaited the pitch. Saitama cocking his fist back as he came up to bat. The last thing the creature saw amidst the world of pain it found itself in being a red glove coming straight towards its face, just before its entire upper body exploded in a shower of gore from the massive force of the blow, the punch scattering the surrounding cloud coverage for miles in the process as it made contact, the sun shimmering off the man's dome. He regarded what was left of his half-second adversary whilst his blood-covered fist was drawn back to his side. "My name is Saitama. It's nice to meet you." Saitama introduced himself cordially to the remains of Vaccine Man, he having had good manners instilled into him by Naruto. After all, first impressions were important. "I'm sorry for cutting this brief, Nipple Man, but we really need to get going if we want to get the shopping done in time." "Naruto, are you coming?" Saitama asked as he looked towards where his brother should be, only to take on a confused expression. "Coming!" Naruto shouted with a smile as he headed towards his big brother with something or rather someone in his arms. "What is that?" Saitama asked as he pointed to the little girl in Naruto's arms. Now that he was a little closer he noticed that she wasn't that young, she looking to be around 12 or so. Not that it mattered really. "Oh, it's a little girl," Naruto responded plainly. "I know that, I mean, what are you doing with it?" Saitama asked. "Well, I had to knock her out after I rescued her, so it's my responsibility as a hero to get her somewhere safe, right?" Naruto asked as he looked inquisitively at Saitama. Saitama lowly whispered as a shadow shrouded his features and he placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder, causing him to gulp. Suddenly the shadow pulled away as Saitama looked at him proudly and gave him the smallest of smiles. "Good job. For this act of heroism you get 2 more marks on the hero chart on the fridge." "Alright." Naruto cheered as big grin formed on his face. "Okay, we need to dump her on someone else. I mean get her somewhere safe." Saitama quickly corrected at the look his brother gave him when he suggested such a thing as ditching her in the middle of a ruined city. "Anyways, let's just head to one of the emergency shelters and see what we can do. The sooner we get this over with, the sooner we can head to the sale," Saitama said as he started walking off in some random direction. "Got it, big bro," Naruto said with a nod as he followed after his brother while looking at the little girl in his arms. "Ah, she's a cute little thing, isn't she?" Naruto cooed. "Her jacket's pretty cool too. I wonder if she can tell me where to buy one like that." "All little kids seem cute, Naruto, but deep inside they are the most fearsome little monsters any single hero can face," Saitama said with a fearful expression as he turned to Naruto. "Really?" Naruto asked wide-eyed at the news. "Yes, really, after all I took care of you, didn't I?" Saitama said with a small satisfied smirk. "Hey, I resent that," Naruto shouted back at him as the two of them headed towards the emergency shelter, unknowing of what the future awaited for them. So our two heroes set off on to find somewhere safe for their little friend, not knowing that this was simply the beginning of a long and treacherous road, paved by the monsters that they would no doubt crush underfoot, a journey of romance, adventure, and most of all overwhelming power, along with all the issues that came with each. After all, there's nothing suspicious about 2 costumed men walking around a ruined city with a little girl in their arms. No, of course not. Our heroes know exactly what they're doing. "Ack, she drooled on me. How ungrateful of her. Doesn't she know that these costumes have to be hand-washed? Well, at least they're strong. Who are you two? And why the hell did you just barge into my office?" A middle-aged man yelled as he regarded the 2 individuals in front of him, they both looking like they came out of an anime convention with how they were dressed. "Oh, I'm Saitama, an average guy who's a hero for fun, and this is my little brother." "I don't give a shit," the man cut in, not having the time to waste on the 2 of them at the moment. "Both of you are interfering with my work. Don't you know that a monster just destroyed several sectors of the city and that the shelter is nearing critical capacity? I don't have time for costumed fools pretending to be superheroes. If you don't leave my office within the next 45 seconds, I'm going to call the police. And I will have you know that it will be a short wait as they are quite literally next door," the man said as he glared at the 2 imbeciles in front of him. Any other day and he would amuse them with hearing them out, that or commit them to a mental asylum, but today wasn't one of those days, thousands dead and tens of thousands more injured. He had his hands full at the moment simply keeping the emergency backup shelter operational as he keep in contact with law enforcement and the Hero Association. He simply didn't have time for fools, especially with the threat currently raging just beyond these reinforced walls. Ototo, you're better at talking to people. Talk, Saitama said as he decided it was too much of a bother on trying to argue with what he had immediately labeled as a stubborn old man. Fine, Naruto said as he took the sudden shift in responsibility in stride. We're sorry to barge in like this, old man. We just came here to help out a friend of ours, he said in all seriousness. Old? I'm only 37, the middle-aged man thought, a bit miffed at that. You got 30 seconds, the director said with a narrowed-eyed glare at the two of them, causing Naruto to shrug at the reply, while Saitama did not look bothered in the least as he riffled through the man's candy jar. You can come in, sweetie, Naruto said as he turned towards the door and smiled just as a head peeked through the doorway, revealing a cute little brown-haired girl with pigtails, this being the same girl they had rescued when confronting Vaccine Man. Come on, don't be shy, Naruto gently urged as she walked into the room and quickly clung to Naruto's cape, she not letting go no matter how hard he tried. What is this? The old man questioned, actually a tad bit curious about what this was all about. We found her, Saitama explained while sucking on a handful of hard candy. She was all by herself in the ruins, and we thought it would be for the best if we brought her here. Yeah, that, and she gave us directions to the place after she woke up. She said that if her parents were anywhere they would be here, Naruto elaborated. You mean you two just came through that whole mess outside? The man shouted in clear shock. I thought the door to this shelter was buried in by a fallen skyscraper. We found a way, Naruto said with a mischievous smirk as he thought of the giant hole now cutting through said skyscraper towards the shelter, temporarily satisfied with the answer as he thought they likely could have navigated through the wreckage in some manner. He continued with his questioning. What about the mysterious being? How did you manage to traverse the ruins without raising its suspicions? He questioned. Normally he would be a bit more apprehensive of the thought of someone entering an emergency shelter after lockdown had been initiated, especially if the possibility existed of them leading a mysterious being to the shelter. However, if that was the case, he very much doubted they would all still be alive at this point. Didn't you get the news, old man? Naruto questioned disbelievingly as he eyed the old man. After all, he would have suspected that the director temporarily in charge of Emergency Shelter A7 would be privy to such important details. What do you mean? The man asked with a frown. Big Blue is dead. Crack. I told you, Saitama, it's not healthy to chew hard candy. It'll get stuck in your teeth. Remember what happened to your molar, Naruto lectured. Right, I can bite through steel, but God forbid candy gets stuck in my teeth. That stuff can kill you, Saitama commented sarcastically, it being a bit confusing as his face looked completely serious as he said this. Wait, hold on a second, are you telling me that the mysterious being out there is dead? The director asked in disbelief. He hadn't heard about this from Central, so how did these two know about it? However, as he noticed the strange blue liquid currently staining the gloves of both men before him, suspicion started to mount. Sure is, Saitama replied. As much as it can be, Naruto said with a shrug. Yep, there's no deader than dead, Saitama playfully commented. Okay, I get it. The mysterious being is dead, the man said amusedly, if a bit annoyed at the two, but if that's the case, then why haven't I heard from? This is an emergency broadcast. As of now, we are declaring the all clear for sectors A1, A3, and A7, A9 of City A. All emergency shelters are to recommence rescue attempts and are expected to go through the appropriate procedures to reintroduce their charges into their everyday lives. Those whose jobs are currently found to be inexistent in the wake of this attack are to be offered jobs in the reconstruction attempt of their corresponding sectors, due to extensive damage. Sectors A4, A6 are to remain in code yellow until the appropriate teams are mobilized. That is all, the emergency intercom blurted out. Well, I'll be damned, the director said, surprised as Naruto smiled smugly at that. See, what did we say? Told ya he was dead. Naruto shouted excitedly. Believe us now, old man? Saitama added. Well, I'd be hard-pressed not to at this point, the director admitted. So are you going to help us out or not? Naruto pressed. What do you— oh yes, the girl. I'm guessing you want me to run through my data banks to see if her parents are here, correct? The man asked curiously. Mister, would you help me find my mommy and daddy? The girl pleaded, causing the man to grimace at that. Now he wasn't a deluded optimist. The chance that the girl's parents had both managed to reach the shelter in time was drastically low. In all likelihood chances were that both parents had died and at the most he would have to get her to any living relatives that she may have. It was likely that the girl was an orphan and she didn't even know it. Looking through his databanks, his thoughts were confirmed as the A-City emergency shelters all came back negative on the girl's parents. Pending the recovery efforts, it was very likely that they were dead. Well, the results came back inconclusive. Not surprising considering the fact that we have yet to account for all the people in the shelters at the moment, he lied through his teeth with a smile. If you two could provide me with your contact information and such, I could keep you up to date concerning the matter and inform you if any new developments arise, he offered. That's fine, I suppose, Naruto shrugged, noticing the slight change in the man's demeanor, but chalking it up to relief that the monster was dead as he felt no actual ill intent coming from the man. Perfect, the man replied with a disarming smile as he handed the two of them 2 forms to fill out, Naruto carefully reading the form while Saitama frowned at his for a moment before handing it over to Naruto, who took it without a word. Seeing the man's curious look, Saitama decided to explain himself a bit. We lived together, he responded plainly, causing the wheels in the man's head to turn. Oh, that makes sense, the old man said with a nod as he waited for Naruto to fill out the forms. After a few minutes of silence he spoke up once more, so are you two together, or… He trailed off as he left the insinuation quite clear, causing both Naruto and Saitama to look a little green at that, while the girl merely looked confused at what was being said. No! I mean hell no! We're brothers! Saitama cried out in a rare moment of emotion, said emotion being none other than disgust. Really? The director said, actually surprised at them being brothers of all things. They looked nothing alike after all. Nothing about them hinted at them being related in any way. Everything from their jawline to their eye color was completely different. However, when looking at the matching outfits they were wearing, it was clear that they did in fact have some things in common. I can see the resemblance, the director said with a small smirk as he looked at their ridiculous ensembles. Naruto, seeing what he was looking at, decided to nip such thoughts at the bud. They were a gift, he replied simplistically, a hint of anger permeating his voice. I apologize, I meant no disrespect. It's just what with the matching outfits and all. The director apologized as he conceded that he may have gone a bit too far in teasing the two. He supposed it was a mixture of the ridiculousness of the situation, bundled up with his frayed nerves from the recent incident, and the relief of the all clear that had prompted him to act so unprofessionally. Like Naruto said, they were gifts, Saitama repeated with a narrow-eyed glare at the director, causing said man to raise his hands in surrender. Plus, even if I did roll that way, which I don't, I could do so much better than that, Naruto said with a laugh as he pointed at Saitama with his pen. What's that supposed to mean, huh? Saitama, as he redirected his glare towards him, am I not good enough for you, is that it? It's because I'm bald, isn't it? He demanded. Cool it, man, no need to be so sensitive. It's got nothing to do with that, you're just not my type is all, Naruto responded plainly, as he followed up on the joke and caused Saitama to hang his head dejectedly at that. Right then, however, they got the response they were looking for as the little girl with them broke out into giggles at the two of them, causing both of them to smile softly at that. Turning to the director with a smile on his face, Naruto handed him the filled-out forms. Contact us if there are any developments on the case, old man. I'm 37, the director said with a glare as he took the papers in hand. I don't remember asking, old man, Naruto teased with a smirk, as he knew he was getting to the man if the angry twitch of his eye was any indication. Naruto, the sales, Saitama reminded, causing Naruto to go wide-eyed at that. I almost forgot, Naruto shouted as he looked over at the clock in the office only to find that they only had about a little over an hour to get there. We better get going. Wait, this says you live in the abandoned sector of Z City. The director cried out in shock as the two made to leave. Oni-chan, are you going to go now? The little girl asked. She grabbed onto Naruto's cape, causing the teen to stop in his tracks at that as he turned to regard her. Are you going to leave me behind too, just like mommy and daddy? She accused with large watery eyes, causing Naruto to take on an ashamed expression at that as he rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. Damn, who knew that saying goodbye would be so hard? He should have simply done what Saitama said and taken her to the nearest shelter rather than waiting for her to wake up. He should have done as Saitama said and not gotten attached, but he liked seeing things through. Could he help it that he had wanted to comfort a person that was all alone in the world when he himself knew what it was like to suddenly lose all that you had ever known? Was it so wrong that he had identified with her and gone on to sit with her until she had shed all the tears she had to shed? That he had tried so hard to make her laugh? That he had taken her to get ice cream before coming here? Was it wrong that he cared too much? No, it wasn't, he decided. He had been fortunate enough to have someone at the point of his life where he needed it most, to help him when he needed it most. It was for this reason that he had become a hero in the first place, to help those that needed it most. Actions may often speak louder than words, but often all that was needed was words. Oh, I wouldn't dream of it, sweetie, it's just that these people can do a better job at taking care of you than I can. He tried to explain only to cause her to become even more teary-eyed at his words. I knew it, you're leaving me, she cried out as she let go of his cape with angry tears of frustration streaming down her face at his apparent betrayal. No, never, he declared fiercely, causing her to stop crying and look at him hopefully, as he came up short on how he would fix this. Looking at his brother, he was only met with a look as clueless as his own as to how to remedy the situation, Saitama only offering a meager shrug in response. Suddenly being struck by inspiration as he came up with an idea, he quickly turned to the side as he pulled out something from his pocket, said item being none other than a whistle he used to sound off during his and his brother's races during their training. The girl trying vainly to sneak a peek at what he was doing before he suddenly turned towards her with a large grin on his face. Tell you what, if you promise to behave and wait here to meet up with your parents, I'll give you my greatest treasure, he said as he waved his hands around dramatically before suddenly bringing forth an ordinary-looking metal whistle on a black cord. Ooh, she said in apparent awe at the intro before looking at it oddly for a second and turning to him. What is it? I told you, didn't I? It's my greatest treasure, he declared animatedly, so much so that he almost believed it himself. Hey, isn't that our practice whistle? G.H. Saitama managed to get out before he got elbowed in the gut by Naruto to shut him up. Looks just like an ordinary whistle to me, the girl commented disbelievingly as she looked at it with apparent disinterest. Looks can be deceiving. This whistle is special. It's actually thanks to this that both my brother and I are superheroes, he enthusiastically proclaimed, as it was technically true, as he had actively used it during the course of their training to keep the two of them on track. While the girl whispered in awe as she looked at the ordinary-looking whistle in a new light. Now, she was a fairly intelligent 12-year-old, and as such she wasn't one to take such claims as a magical whistle lightly. However, she had seen firsthand the impossible feats that the pair of brothers were capable of. There was no rational explanation that she could come up with for their abilities. If this whistle played any part in making them into what they were now, then it most certainly was a treasure. Not only that, but I also have the pitch this particular whistle makes memorized, which means that no matter how far away it is I can still hear it. This means that when you blow it I will be able to show up just in time to save the day, he said excitedly, this also being technically true as either brother could pick up the unique sound their training whistles could make from hundreds of miles away. Wow, really? She shouted in shock at the idea of such an awesome thing as a personal superhero, she nearly jumping in place out of sheer excitement. Really, he promised with a smile as he gently pressed the whistle against the palm of her hand as he held onto it for a moment. But you have to promise to only blow it in case of an emergency. I'm sure you know the story of the boy who cried wolf? He warned as he looked at her sternly, getting a serious nod from her at that before he smiled and let go. She quickly set about placing the whistle around her neck. Perfect fit, Naruto commented with a sad smile just as she looked up at him with big watery eyes. Shooting forward, she pulled him into a tight hug as she clung to him desperately whilst burying her face into his shirt. I'm going to miss you, big brother, the girl cried out as in the short time she had known him she had felt as if she had found someone that really understood her, that shared the pain she felt at the moment. Naruto could not help but let out a strangled laugh at that. To think that he of all people would have someone calling him big brother was a new experience for him. Even though he often acted the more mature of the two, he was someone that constantly relied on his brother for emotional support. He was always the little brother, the one that always needed a shoulder to cry on when things got too rough. To be the one supporting someone else was fulfilling in ways he had never imagined possible. Is this what his brother felt like? He, the unshakable pillar of the world who could withstand anything and not break under the pressure? It was painful, it was satisfying, it was happy, it was sad. He didn't even know what to feel. Is this sort of responsibility, this sort of strength that was required to hold upon your shoulders the weight of others' lives, what had driven his brother to become as he was? Suddenly every single life that perished in the attack from Big Blue held weight. Suddenly civilians were people again. Had his brother felt this crushing weight of failure with every success as he himself just had? The knowledge that no matter how fast you were, no matter how strong you may be, you simply could not save everyone, no matter how hard you tried? Is that why he had urged him not to get too attached? Hugging the small girl back, however, he was reminded of why heroes existed in the first place. Amidst even the greatest of failures, a hero could snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. This little girl in his arms at the moment was his victory. He might not have saved her parents, or even the thousands of people that died in the wake of this most recent of tragedies, but he did save her. She was living testament to his actions on this day. He could miss a trip to the grocery store for this. "I'll miss you too, Amito-chan," he said amidst happy tears as he hugged her back. In their careers it was rare to make friends. Most people treated them like costumed weirdos rather than heroes after all. But he could honestly say that today he had made a friend in her. Looking towards Saitama, he managed to glance at the look upon his face as he stared sadly at the two before he turned away from the scene, his expression as uninspired as ever. He had an awesome big brother. Breaking the hug, he looked down at the petite girl in front of him with a sad smile. "Well, we better get going. Got places to be, people to save and all that," he said as cheerfully as he could, his statement causing the girl to nod understandably at that as she looked at him with a heartfelt smile. "Good luck," she said softly as she clutched the whistle tightly in her hands. "Take care of my little sis for me, old man," he shouted as he waved back at the director. "I'm only 37. The director shouted back after him as he and his brother left the room. "No one asked you, old man," his little sister happily quipped back, causing the director to groan at that and for Naruto to smirk as he heard her from down the hall. "Well, even though I already know your name thanks to the two fools that came with you, don't you think you should introduce yourself?" The man prodded, causing the girl to frown at the way he referred to her friends. "They're not fools, they're heroes," she replied with a glare, and as much as the man wanted to say otherwise, as the two weren't registered with the Hero Association as professional heroes, he could not deny that their action in bringing this girl to the shelter when they had no need to was in no way any less heroic. So maybe they were heroes. After all, heroes didn't need to save the world to be labeled as such. Small things like this could make a difference, and impact people's lives in their own way as well. Laughing at the girl's declaration, he could not help but concede on the matter. "Maybe they are." He laughed, causing the girl to grow even more frustrated at that as she thought he was laughing at her. "Whatever, my name is Aoi Tachibana and it's definitely not a pleasure to meet you," she bit back as she crossed her arms angrily in front of her chest. And just like that, the director's smile was gone. This was fixing to be a really long day. With Naruto and Saitama, the two were currently walking through the shelter in silence as the mass of people in the large domed construct parted before them in fear. "So the training whistle," Saitama started as he drummed up some conversation. "It was all I had on hand at the moment," Naruto replied defensively. "Plus technically what I said was true, so I didn't lie." "Never said you did," Saitama replied, slightly surprised at how defensive he was getting. "It was just I'm surprised you would give it away like that is all," he explained, causing Naruto to look sheepish at he having jumped to conclusions like that. "Sorry," Naruto apologized. "Yeah, I don't know, it's just this whole situation reminded me a lot of that time back then," he said as he trailed off in thought. "You mean with the green-haired woman and the unnamed city?" Saitama asked curiously, as this was one of the big mysteries surrounding his brother that he had been trying to get to the bottom of for years. Nodding, Naruto continued, "She was just like me back then, alone and afraid, wanting anyone to lend an ear, to offer a hand. It's like the roles have become reversed since then. It makes me wonder if I could bring myself to do such a thing for someone that I thought important," Naruto said as he looked at his open hand curiously before closing it into a fist. "I know what you mean. To destroy an entire city for someone, all the lives lost, that must weigh heavily on her conscience. I'm sure it haunts her to this day," Saitama said wisely in a rare moment of insight. Through bonds, another person's life can become worth more to someone than the lives of others, sometimes even the life of that person themselves. That's why when a tragedy strikes, the ones that you worry about, the ones that you cry for, are those closest to you. If you're hundreds of miles away and you hear that thousands of people died in a tragedy just like this one, you don't mourn the calamity, rather you hope. As morbid as it is, you hope that everyone else died rather than that one person that you care about. The mother hopes that it was the son of her neighbor that died rather than her own. The husband hopes that it was his friend rather than his wife. Powerful bonds outweigh weaker ones, and if you find the person you care about among the dead, only then do you allow yourself to truly mourn, Saitama said sadly. Whether you know it or not, that single life is worth more to you than thousands of others. The one person that you care about outweighs the thousands that you do not. That, Naruto, is how a good person can become a monster. That is what leads someone like your green-haired friend to kill off an entire city for a single person, Saitama explained as pain swam in his usually dull eyes. But it doesn't make any sense. She didn't know me well enough to craft bonds of such magnitude. He shouted in confusion. She didn't even know my name, he said sadly as he cast his eyes downwards, only to feel Saitama wrap an arm around his shoulders comfortingly. You don't need a lifetime to craft bonds like that, Naruto. All you need is a moment, Saitama explained. In just a few hours you have built a lasting bond with that girl that will impact her for the rest of her life. I bet you that even after both of us have turned to dust and that girl is on her deathbed, she will still be clinging on to that whistle you gave her and remembering this very day, Saitama said seriously as he dared not underestimate the mark that Naruto had left upon her today with his actions. That's so sad, Naruto said with tears in his eyes. That's life, Saitama responded with a shrug. It's part of the path that we set forth to face on the day we both decided to become heroes. Yeah, Naruto answered back as he wiped away his tears. I guess we did, he said as he offered Saitama a smile that eventually faded back into a thoughtful expression. What about our bond? Naruto asked curiously. Our bond? Saitama repeated only to get a confirmatory nod from Naruto, causing him to give the question a good deal of thought as he knew that this was important to him, definitely worth a few million lives in my opinion. That green-haired girl destroyed a city for you. I would destroy 100, he answered decisively, earning an odd yet also frightened look from Naruto at that, as he knew that Saitama could very well back up his words and there would be little that could be done to stop him. Wow, I never thought bonds were that powerful. I guess that if I was forced to do it I might. I mean, I don't think I can see myself trying to go through life without my bro by my side, Naruto said as he got out of his rut and back into his usual jovial mood. Yeah, me neither. Why, I don't think I could survive more than a few weeks without mooching off you, Saitama jokingly replied as he followed along. Try a few days, Naruto laughed. The two walked out of the smashed-in doors of the shelter, and were given way by the numerous frightful people outside that were looking at the enormous hole that was cutting through the same skyscraper that had offered them protection from the mysterious being, the hole Saitama himself had created with just one punch. As they walked, however, Saitama could not help the thoughts that crossed his mind at his most recent conversation with his little brother. Truth was that even though Naruto saw him as this unshakable pillar of fortitude and valor, a person that would not succumb to his emotions or likely be defeated by a powerful foe, he too had a single glaring weakness. Those powerful bonds that he spoke of, that often empowered others to act, was his greatest weakness. His brother, Naruto, was his greatest weakness.